Sir. Okay, okay, sir. Nice. Sir, is it okay, sir? Face అంతా clear గా ఉంది కదా సార్? Okay, sir. Hello, sir. Can I proceed, sir? Okay. So, good morning, all of you. This is the third day I am discussing about human anatomy and physiology. In the first day, I had discussion about cell junctions, transport mechanisms. In the second day, I started with digestive system and cardiovascular system. Yesterday, I had discussion related to the cardiovascular system, that is structure of the blood vessels, nothing but arteries, arterioles, capillaries, followed by venules, veins, and chambers of the heart, valves of the heart, and flow of the blood through the heart. Today, I need to discuss about remaining part of the cardiovascular system, and also I received the doubts or questions from participants. At the end of today's session, I can discuss the previous questions came in GPAT related to the topics what I covered, and also I can explain after completion of the cardiovascular system, that is reproductive system. Coming to, that arteries supply the oxygenated blood to the heart, whereas that means that arteries nothing but coronary arteries. Coronary arteries supply the blood to the heart. That coronary arteries are two types: right coronary artery, left coronary artery, which supply the blood to the chambers of the heart. I need to start from valves of the heart. There are two valves that separate the atrial chambers above from the ventricular chambers. Below are the ventricles, are called as atrioventricular valves. The valves which can separate the atria with ventricles are called as atrioventricular valves. So there are two types of atrioventricular valves. That first one is right atrioventricular valve, which is also called as tricuspid valve. Right atrioventricular valve, which is also called as tricuspid valve. It consists of three leaf-like valve components, whereas the left atrioventricular valve is called the bicuspid or mitral valve. It consists of two leaf-like valve components. So the function of the right atrioventricular valve, which is also called as tricuspid, the left atrioventricular valve, which is also called as bicuspid, they prevent the backflow of the blood into the atria when ventricles contract. Coming to another valves, semilunar valves. Semilunar valves located between the two ventricle chambers and the arteries. So heart can have the right ventricle and left ventricle. So that means heart can pump the blood to the lungs and also can pump the blood to the body parts. Heart can pump the blood to the heart, to the lung. Heart also can pump the blood to the body parts. So the right ventricle can pump the blood to the lung. Left ventricle can pump the blood to the body parts. So the semilunar valves are two. These semilunar valves, two types. That first one is pulmonary semilunar valve. The pulmonary semilunar valve is located at the beginning of the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary semilunar valve is located at the beginning of the pulmonary artery. That means the blood which is came into the right atrium through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. This right atrium can send that deoxygenated blood through tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. That right ventricle through pulmonary artery send the blood to the lungs. Send the blood to the lungs. So when right ventricle is sending the blood to the lungs through pulmonary arteries, these pulmonary arteries at their beginning can have the pulmonary semilunar valves, and these open and allow the blood to enter into the pulmonary circulation. So the valve closes to prevent backflow of the blood into the right ventricle. So the pulmonary semilunar valve is located at the beginning of the pulmonary artery. This valve prevent the backflow of the blood into the right ventricle. Into the right ventricle. That means right ventricle supply the deoxygenated blood through pulmonary artery into pulmonary circulation. Into pulmonary circulation. So pulmonary artery always carries the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. Coming to the aortic semilunar valve. The aortic semilunar valve is located at the beginning of the aorta. The aortic semilunar valve is located at the beginning of the aorta. So aorta is the large artery which can receive the blood from left ventricle when it contracts. When it contracts. So the aortic, the name itself, aortic semilunar valve is located at the beginning of the aorta. This valve opens to allow blood to enter into the systemic circulation. The valve opens to allow blood to enter systemic circulation. It closes to prevent backflow of blood from the aorta into the left ventricle. It closes to prevent the backflow of the blood from the aorta into the left ventricle. So that are the two valves, right atrioventricular valves and semilunar valves. Atrioventricular valves and semilunar valves. Atrioventricular valves are right atrioventricular valve, left atrioventricular valve. Semilunar valves are pulmonary semilunar valve, aortic valve. Coming to passage of blood through the heart. So already we explained in case of yesterday. So that right atrium receives the blood through superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. This right atrium through tricuspid valve send the blood to the right ventricle. This right ventricle through pulmonary semilunar valve send into the pulmonary trunk and arteries to the lungs. Then from lungs, the pulmonary veins collect the blood and send into the left atrium. Through left atrium, through bicuspid valve, it enter into the left ventricle. That means left atrium received the oxygenated blood. Thus oxygenated blood through bicuspid valve entered into the left ventricle. Left ventricle contracts and left ventricle supply the oxygenated blood into the aortic semilunar valve. Through aortic semilunar valve, it enters into the aorta. This aorta supply the blood to the different parts of the body through its branches. So the heart must perform a great amount of work by pumping through the pulmonary and systemic systems. So ultimately, heart can pump the blood to the lungs and also body parts, that is systemic systems. So it requires to do the work. heart also requires the continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients. Continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients via the coronary circulation to perform this task. So coronary circulation can supply the oxygen and nutrients to the heart to perform its function. So the heart acts as a two separate pumps. So the right side of the heart pumps blood into the pulmonary system. The right side of the heart pumps blood into the pulmonary system. The left side of the heart pumps blood into the systemic circulation. The left side of the heart pumps blood into the systemic circulation. So blood enters the right atrium through two large veins called the vena cava. So superior vena cava collect the blood upper parts of the body. Inferior vena cava collect the blood from lower parts of the body, provided into the right atrium. So right atrium receive the deoxygenated blood from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So the blood leaving the right ventricle is deoxygenated. Yeah. Why? Because right atrium pump its deoxygenated blood through tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. However, it enters the pulmonary circulation via the pulmonary artery. So pulmonary arteries can take this deoxygenated blood through pulmonary arteries into lungs. So it is returned as oxygenated blood. It is returned as oxygenated blood to the right atrium via four pulmonary veins. Via four pulmonary veins. Sorry, here not right atrium, left atrium. It is returned as oxygenated blood to the left atrium via four pulmonary veins. So the blood returning to the left atrium crosses the mitral valve. So left atrium receives the oxygenated blood through pulmonary veins. Left atrium receives the oxygenated blood through pulmonary veins. So this left atrium through crossing the mitral valve entering into the left ventricle during atrial contraction. Left atrium receives the oxygenated blood from pulmonary veins. This left atrium through mitral valve or through bicuspid valve send the blood to the left ventricle. So when the ventricles contract, the left atrioventricular valve closes and the blood is pushed into the aortic semilunar valve into systemic circulation. When the ventricles contract, the left AV valve, or it is also called as mitral valve, closes and the blood is pushed into the aortic semilunar valve, then into systemic circulation. So right part of the heart supply the blood to the left part of the heart supply the to the body parts. So left atrium received the oxygenated blood through four pulmonary veins. So this left atrium through, that is mitral valve, bicuspid valve, send the left ventricle. When blood reaches into the left ventricle, there is a closing of the mitral valve or bicuspid valve, and directly it is pushed into the aortic valve, aortic semilunar valve, then into the systemic circulation. Blood flows into the heart via the right and left coronary arteries. So already I told, heart also continuously requires the blood supply through, but that blood supply requires the nutrients and oxygen. So blood flows into the heart via the right and left coronary arteries. So the location of the openings of these arteries are behind the aortic valve. So the location of openings to these arteries, the two arteries can be opened behind the aortic valve. The openings are called ostia. When the aortic valve closes after ventricular systole nothing but contraction. When the aortic valve closes after ventricular systole, blood can flow in a retrograde manner into the coronary arteries. So when there is a closing of the aortic valve, blood entering into the coronary artery. So closing of the aortic valve can make the flowing of the blood into the coronary arteries and prevent the backflow of the blood into the left ventricle So closing of the aortic valve makes the movement of the blood into the coronary arteries. Closing of the aortic valve prevent the backflow of the blood into the left ventricle. Prevent the backflow of blood into the left ventricle. This is the right coronary artery, left coronary artery. So right coronary artery and left coronary artery supply the blood to the heart. Supply the blood to the heart. Hence, heart is supplied by two coronary arteries. Yes, the right and the left coronary arteries are branches of the ascending aorta. Are branches of the ascending aorta. So, heart is supplied by two coronary arteries. That right coronary artery, left coronary artery, which are branches of the ascending aorta. Take the functions of the right coronary artery and left coronary artery. So, coming to right coronary artery, it is smaller than left coronary artery. It is smaller coronary artery. Right coronary artery, one marginal, second is post interventricular. Post interventricular. There are two coronary, one second post ventricular. This right coronary side the that means right atrium name indicate right coronary artery part of the right ventricle of the right ventricle. It also supply the smaller part of ventricle. Smaller part of ventricle. It may the blood right and posterior part of the interventricular septum. Posterior interseptum separate ventricle. Separate of the ventricle. Entire conducting system at the left branch of the bundle also receives the blood through coronary artery. Entire conducting system at the left branch of the AV bundle, left branch of the AV bundle receives blood from right coronary artery. Right coronary merely supply the blood to the right part of the heart. Right part of the heart. Coming to left coronary artery, it is larger than right. It is larger than right. The two branches from this left coronary artery, the branches to the inferior surface, Number two, anterior interventricular. Anterior interventricular. Right coronary, posterior interventricular. Left coronary artery, anterior interventricular. So, area supplied is left atrium. The name indicates left coronary artery supply the blood to the left parts of the heart. Left atrium, small part of right ventricle, greater part of left ventricle. It majorly supply the blood to the greater part of the left ventricle and anterior part of the interventricular septum. So that left branch of the AV bundle, receives the blood from left coronary artery. So these are the functions of the right coronary artery and left coronary artery. Right coronary artery again have the two branches, marginal, posterior interventricular. Left coronary artery can also have the two branches to the interior surface and anterior interventricular. Coming to parasympathetic nerve supply to the heart, that is vagus, via vagus nerve. Parasympathetic nerve is supplied through vagus nerve. So this parasympathetic through vagus is cardio inhibitory. So vagus is cardio inhibitory, that is decreases the heart rate. Supplying of the stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system leads to the decreasing of the heart rate. That means cardio inhibitory in nature. That is vagus nerve is supplied to the heart. Vagus nerve is the parasympathetic nerve. Coming to sympathetic nerve from thoracic 2 to thoracic 5, T to T5 segment. It is the cardio acceleratory. Sympathetic nervous system, the cardio acceleratory, increases the heart rate and dilates the blood vessel. That is sympathetic nervous system. So it increases the heart rate. Coming to coronary veins. So coronary veins closely parallel to the arterial system. system. They have the parallel to the arterial system. Some coronary venous blood enters the heart through the Thebesian veins. Some coronary venous blood means the blood receiving from the heart. The blood receiving from the heart, that is coronary venous blood, enters the heart through the Thebesian veins. Enters the heart through the Thebesian veins. So Thebesian veins, nothing but the smallest cardiac veins. Very important. Smallest cardiac veins present in 4 chambers of the heart. So these smallest cardiac veins present in 4 chambers of the heart. They empty directly to all chambers, thus creating some venous admixture, lowering partial pressure of oxygen. Very simple. Smallest cardiac veins, nothing but Thebaceous veins. These are present in 4 chambers of the heart and collect the blood from the heart. So the veins which are collecting the blood from the heart called as coronary veins. The veins which are collecting the blood from the heart is called as coronary veins. Coming to structure of the myocardium. So heart can have the majorly 3 layers. That is epicardium, myocardium, endocardium. These 3 layers are covered by the epicardium. So especially the myocardial tissue. Myocardium plays the major role or immense role in the pumping of the blood. So here we need to know the structure of the myocardium. So myocardial cell, the cells which are present in the middle layer of the heart, that are called as myocardial cell or myocyte. Simply myocyte or cardiomyocyte. Very clearly cardiomyocyte. So these cells contain myosin, actin, troponin and tropomyosin. So these cells contains the proteins, that is contractile proteins. Myosin, actin, troponin and tropomyosin. So gap junctions, I discussed in case of the cell junctions. So gap junctions are present at the intercalated discs. So gap junctions are present at the intercalated discs. So gap junctions are present at the intercalated disc. So entire heart behaves as an electrical syncytium. This is very important. Due to this property, it's the autorhythmicity. Entire heart behaves as an electrical syncytium. Entire heart behaves as an electrical syncytium. Mitochondria are more numerous in cardiac muscles than in skeletal muscles. Remember, mitochondria are more numerous. That means more number of mitochondria are present in cardiac muscles than in skeletal muscle. That's why heart is requires the continuously the supply of the energy. Due to abundant availability of the myocardia, due to abundant availability of mitochondria in the cardiac muscle is helpful for the supplying of the energy. So coming to T tubules. Invaginations in the cell membrane. T tubules, invaginations in the cell membrane, carry action potentials into the cell interior. So where there is origination of the action potential, that will be transmitted through T tubules into the cell interior. That means T tubules carry the action potential into the cell interior. T tubules carry the action potentials into the cell interior. Coming to sarcoplasmic reticulum, it is the site of storage of calcium ions. Which are needed for the excitation contraction coupling. So T tubules carry the action potential into the cell interior. Sarcoplasmic reticulum is the site of storage of calcium ions. Which are needed for excitation contraction coupling. Coming to steps in excitation contraction coupling. What are the steps in case of excitation contraction coupling? So action potential which is generated, that action potential spread from the cell membrane through the T tubules. So T tubule carries the action potential into the cell interior. During the plateau phase of the action potential, calcium enter the cell from the extracellular fluid. So calcium ions are required for the contraction. So this calcium entry inside the cell trigger the release of more calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Sarcoplasmic reticulum. That's why it is called as calcium-induced calcium release. Calcium-induced calcium release. So action potential through T tubules enters into the inside the cell. Okay. Whereas in case of during plateau phase of the action potential, that calcium ions are enter the cell from the extracellular fluid. This calcium trigger the release of the more calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. That is, it is called calcium induced calcium release. Amount release depends on the how much calcium ions are released is required into the inside the cell. That is depending on the amount stored. So depending upon the storage availability of the calcium ions in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Depending on the availability of the stored calcium ions, depending on the availability of the stored calcium ions in the sarcoplasmic reticulum and the size of the inward current. These both can influence the release of the calcium from their stores, in presence of the external calcium which is entered into the cell. So that intracellular calcium increase actin myosin interaction and makes the contraction. So this intracellular calcium which are increased, that make the actin myosin interaction and contraction occurs. So the magnitude of tension developed depends on the amount of intracellular calcium. So the magnitude of tension developed depends on the amount of the intracellular calcium. Relaxation occurs when calcium is pumped back into sarcoplasmic reticulum by calcium ATPase pump. So relaxation occurs when there is a calcium is pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum by calcium ATPase pump. That means calcium ATPase pump is located on sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is involved in taking back of the calcium ions into sarcoplasmic reticulum. So these are the steps in case of excitation, contraction, coupling. Right? So calcium ions are stored in case of sarcoplasmic reticulum. That stored calcium ions are released in presence of the extracellular fluid calcium. Coming to very important, the major function of the heart is conduction system of the heart. Here I need to discuss conduction system of the heart. So cardiac muscle cells have their own, that is our intrinsic property of contracting on their own. They have the contracting property, that is called as intrinsic property. If any cell on their own it contract, that is called as intrinsic property. Like that, cardiac muscle cells have an intrinsic property of contracting on their own. So the rate of contraction is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Both parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system decreases the heart rate. Sympathetic nervous system increases the heart rate. The heart has its own alternating contractions during the cardiac cycle. The heart has its own conduction system. The heart has its own contractions. So that coordination is very essential. Coordinating contractions during the cardiac cycle. That intercalated discs are connections. That electrically join cardiac muscle fibers. So these intercalated discs are connections that electrically join cardiac muscle fibers into a single unit that allows for impulse conduction through the entire wall of a heart chamber. Very important. Intercalated discs are the connections that electrically join cardiac muscle fibers into a single unit that allows for impulse conduction through the entire wall of a heart chamber. So that simply these are the connections that electrically join the cardiac muscle fibers into a single unit that allows for impulse conduction through the entire wall of a heart chamber. The structures that make of the conduction system of heart are sinoatrial node or pacemaker, atrioventricular node, AV bundle or bundle of his finally Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fiber. So sinoatrial node or pacemaker, atrioventricular node, AV node, AV bundle or bundle of his Purkinje fibers. These are majorly involved in conduction system of the heart. Sinoatrial node or pacemaker, atrioventricular node, AV bundle or bundle of his finally Purkinje fibers. Impulse conduction starts in the SA node. Impulse conduction starts in the SA node. That is called as generation of impulses. Generation of impulses takes place in the sinoatrial node. It spreads in all directions through the atria. This causes atrial fibers to contract. Once the impulse is spread in all directions throughout the atria. This causes atrial fibers to contract. So impulse is required to make the contraction of the atrial fibers. So the pulse will then travel to the AV node and to the AV bundle or bundle of his, where there is a generation of the impulse. That impulse travel to the AV node from AV node to AV bundle or bundle of his, and finally to the Purkinje fibers, which are causing the ventricular contraction. So the impulse is required for contraction of the atria and also required for contraction of the ventricles. So starting is SA node to atrioventricular node to AV bundle or bundle of his, finally to the Purkinje fibers, which are causing the ventricular contraction. Purkinje fibers are causing the ventricular contraction. Normally, therefore, a ventricular beat will follow an atrial beat. So always there is first atrial beat followed by ventricular beat. You can observe so that is the sinus node, where it is located in case of right atrium, and AV node. So there is a right ventricle and left ventricle. Coming to next part is electrocardiogram. That means recording of the electrical changes which are occurring in the myocardium during cardiac cycle. Very important. Electrocardiogram is recording of the electrical changes. It can record the electrical changes which are occurring in the myocardium during a cardiac cycle. An electrocardiogram nothing but recording of electrical changes which are occurring in the myocardium during a cardiac cycle. And see, so that ECG can have the P wave, QRS and T wave. QRS and T wave. You can see the PR interval. You can observe the PR segment. You can observe the QRS complex. You can also observe the ST segment and QT interval. There are two intervals, PR interval, QT interval. PR interval and QT interval, PR segment, ST segment, QRS complex. Segments are two types. There are two segments and two intervals, PR interval, QT interval, PR segment and ST segment. PR segment and ST segment. I will explain one by one their role. Here you can see once again, this is the PR interval, QT interval, PR segment, ST segment. Okay. That is QRS complex, nothing but QRS interval. Are getting? So here before the T there is a J joint. You can observe P, Q, R, S, T. Before the T, that is at the starting point of the ST segment, there is a J joint. After T there is a U. So PR interval, the important one is QT interval. Segments are PR segment and ST segment. Coming to role of P wave. that P wave represents atrial depolarization. Nothing but atria contraction. P wave represents the atrial depolarization. This is the question in case of the previous drug inspector examination. Drug inspector exam. P wave represents dash atrial depolarization, ventricular depolarization, atrial repolarization, ventricular repolarization. Answer is atrial depolarization. Always there is a first of all contraction of the atria. Contraction of the atria. That is P wave represents atrial depolarization. P wave represents atrial depolarization. Coming to next, there is a PR interval, no? So PR interval means interval, means between, okay, between beginning of P wave to the beginning of Q wave, to the beginning of Q wave, okay, beginning of P wave to beginning of Q wave. It increases with problems in conduction velocity. It increases with problems in conduction velocity. If any person can have the problems in their conduction velocity, okay, that means hot blacks, okay, that interval will be increased. PR interval will be increased with problems in conduction velocity. That means hot black. If any person in their heart have the problems in their conduction velocity, in that cases there is increasing of the PR interval. Increasing of the PR interval. It varies with the heart rate. It varies with the heart rate. That means PR interval is the interval between beginning of P wave to the beginning of Q wave. So this PR interval is increased when the person can have the in their heart, that is conduction velocity problem. Conduction velocity problem, or in case of hot blacks. Hot blacks. Coming to QRS complex, very clear, represents ventricular depolarization. Ventricular depolarization. So after P wave, you can take QRS complex. This QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization. So after atria contraction, there is a contraction of the ventricles. There is a contraction of the ventricle. So contraction of the atria pump the blood into the ventricles. Pump the blood to the ventricles. So this QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization. QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization. It represents the ventricular depolarization. Coming to QT interval. After QRS, there is a QT interval. I told PR interval, and next you can take QT interval. So it is the from beginning of QRS to end of T wave. End of T wave. Beginning of QRS to end of T wave. It represents entire ventricular depolarization and repolarization. It represents entire ventricular depolarization and repolarization. Getting? So QT interval beginning of QRS to end of T wave. Beginning of QRS to end of T wave. These are the two intervals, PT interval, QT interval. Coming to ST segment, it is the segment from the end of S wave, S, to the beginning of T wave, to the beginning of T wave. It is the segment from the end of S wave to the beginning of the T wave. It is the isoelectric. Iso means same or similar. Represents the period when the ventricle is depolarized. The period of the ventricle is depolarized. Means period means duration. Period means duration. Coming to T wave represents ventricular repolarization. T wave represents ventricular repolarization. That means very clear. Here you have to remember P wave indicates atrial depolarization. QRS indicates ventricular depolarization. T wave indicates ventricular repolarization. Ventricular repolarization. Clear? P wave indicates atrial depolarization. QRS complex indicates ventricular depolarization. T wave represents ventricular repolarization. T wave represents ventricular repolarization. Coming to, so I know already you know P wave atrial depolarization spreads from the right atria to the left atria. So the atrial depolarization spreading from the right atrium to left atrium. So the normal value is 80 milliseconds. Normal value is 80 milliseconds. I mean PR segment impulse does not produce contraction. It is traveling towards to ventricles. There is a traveling of the impulse towards to the ventricles, that normal is 50 to 120 milliseconds, 50 to 120 milliseconds. Coming to PR interval, that time it takes for the impulse to travel from the SA node to the AV node, where it then enters to the ventricles. SA node to AV node, when it then enters into the ventricles. So it is the interval. This has more time. Remember, P wave means atrial depolarization that will be spread from the right atrium to left atrium. So the normal value is 80 milliseconds. PR segment, impulse does not produce contraction. Impulse does not produce contraction. Remember, PR does not involve in any contraction. It is traveling toward ventricles. That is normal value 50 to 120 milliseconds. PR interval means P indicates atrial depolarization of PR interval. So that time it takes for the impulse to travel from the SA node to the AV node, where it then enters to the ventricles. The normal value is 120 to 200 milliseconds. So it is more than the PR time and more than P time. QRS complex, that is rapid depolarization right and left ventricle. Depolarization of the QRS, ventricular depolarization by QRS complex. Ventricular depolarization by QRS complex. Rapid depolarization of right and left ventricles. So normal range is 80 to 120 milliseconds. You can take that one also. PR interval is 120 to 200 milliseconds. PR interval is 120 to 200 milliseconds. QRS complex, it leads to the depolarization of the ventricles. Normal range is 80 to 120 milliseconds. So shorter QRS value are found in case of children. Shorter QRS values are found in children and in rapid states of heartbeat. Yes, means fast, means short. So shorter QRS values are found in children and in rapid states of heartbeat. That is tachycardia. Rapid state of heartbeat is called as tachycardia. Prolonged values in case of hyperkalemia are bundle branch blank. That is Purkinje fibers. Prolonged values observed in case of hyperkalemia, and when there is a black in case of bundle branch. Coming to that role, after that is J point, point at which QRS ends. After ending of the QRS, there is a J or beginning of the ST segment. Before beginning of the ST segment or ending of the QRS segment, that is J point. Coming to ST segment, ventricles are depolarized. Normal is 80 to 120 milliseconds. ST. T wave leads to the final wave. No, T is the final one. That is the ventriculars depolarized. That ST segment is the ventricles are depolarized. T wave, this is the ventricular repolarization. ST segment is responsible for the ventricular depolarization. Ventricles are depolarized. Whereas T wave is the ventricular repolarization. Once again, the waves are with segment means transmission of the impulse. That transmission impulse leads to the what function of the heart. First you can remember representation of the each wave. P wave represents the atrial depolarization. QRS complex, QRS3 represents depolarization of the ventricles. So ST segment also coming under the depolarization of the ventricles. T wave indicates ventricular repolarization. P wave indicates atrial depolarization. QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization. T wave represents ventricular repolarization. That means relax. Ventricles relax. T wave indicates 160 milliseconds. Ventricles relax. Coming to ST interval, This ST interval measured from J point to end of T wave. J point to end of T wave normal is 320 milliseconds, represents slow phase of ventricular repolarization. T means it is linked with the repolarization, ventricular repolarization. QT interval measured from beginning of QRS, to end of T, normal is up to 420 milliseconds in heart rates of 60 beats per minute. Finally, that very important one is, so you if you are not able to identify the representation of that segments or intervals, at least you have to remember representation of the each wave. P wave, atrial depolarization; QRS complex, ventricular depolarization; T, ventricular repolarization. So prolonged QT leads to the ventricular arrhythmias. Ventricular tachyarrhythmias. Tachy means increase and sudden death. So the prolonged QT leads to the ventricular tachyarrhythmias and sudden death. Coming to cardiac cycle. So beat, the normal beating of the heart is regular. And in a specific rhythm. The normal beating of the heart is regular and in specific rhythm. Each complete heartbeat is called cardiac cycle. Here in cardiovascular system, structure and function are very important and definitions are very important. Means with respect to time, with respect to beat. So each complete heartbeat is called cardiac cycle and includes both systole and diastole. So complete heartbeat is called cardiac cycle that includes both systole and diastole, nothing but contraction and relaxation. So each cycle takes about 0.8 seconds to complete if the heart is beating at a rate of 72 beats per minute. So to complete the cycle, the time is required is 0.8 seconds if heart is beating at a rate of 72 beats per minute. So each complete heartbeat is called as cardiac cycle. So for minute, heart can beat how many times? 72 beats. For minute, heart can beat 72 beats per minute. Beat means both contraction and relaxation. Contraction is called as systole, relaxation is called as diastole. Systole means contraction, diastole means relaxation. That is called as beat. For minute, how many beats? 72 beats. So each cycle took place 0.8 seconds. Stroke volume, very important. The volume of blood ejected from the ventricles. During each beat. For minute, 72 beats. Per minute, there is a 72 beats. Okay. For each beat, there is a volume of the blood ejected from the ventricles. How much amount of the blood will be ejected from the ventricles for each beat? How much volume of the blood is ejected from the ventricles during each beat? That is called as stroke volume. This is a cardiac cycle. First of all, there is a atrial systole, that is atrial contraction, that leads to the atrial systole. Atrial means plural. Atrial systole contraction leads to the isovolumetric ventricular contraction. Iso means similar. Volume will be the similar. Isovolumetric ventricular contraction. Third one is ventricles eject the blood into the aorta. That is right ventricle eject the blood into the lungs. Left ventricle eject their blood into the aorta. That aorta supplies blood to the different parts of the body. So if ventricles undergoes the contraction, there is a ejection of the blood. So right ventricle pump the blood into the pulmonary system. Left ventricle pump the blood to the systemic circulation. Right ventricle pump the blood to the pulmonary circulation. You can see stroke volume. Volume of blood ejected from the ventricles, both right ventricle and left ventricle during each beat. During each beat. Next, that ventricular contraction lead to the ejection. Ventricular contraction leads to the ejection. Next, after ejection, there is a relaxation of the ventricles. No, relaxation of the ventricle. So isovolumetric ventricular relaxation. Isovolumetric ventricular relaxation. Isovolumetric ventricular relaxation. That is the fourth one. Fifth one is the passive one. Passive ventricular filling. Again, there is a filling of the ventricles. After relaxation, there is a filling of the blood in ventricles which are coming from the atrial systole. Atrial systole. Again, that leads to the back. So atrial systole, ventricular systole. That ventricular systole, when there is a systole of the ventricles, there is a ejection of the blood from the ventricles. How much amount of the blood is ejected from each ventricle per beat? From each ventricle per beat. That is, right ventricle pump the blood to the lungs, left ventricle pump the blood to the systemic circulation. That is ejection. After ejection, there is a relaxation of the ventricles. Relaxation of the ventricles. These are the phases of the cardiac cycle. Coming to velocity of blood flow. Velocity of blood flow is very important. It can be expressed by V is equal to Q by A. V is equal to Q by A. V is equal to velocity, that is centimeter per second. Centimeter per second. V is equal to velocity, that is centimeter per second. Q is equal to blood flow. Blood flow always ml per minute. ml per minute. ml per minute. A means cross-sectional area. Cross-sectional area, that is centimeter square. Cross-section of the arteries. Cross-section of the veins. Okay, that is cross-sectional area. So blood is flow. In case of blood vessels are majorly two types: arteries and veins. Arteries are large arteries, medium-sized arteries, arterioles, capillaries. Coming to in case of veins, there is veins and venules. Veins and venules. So all these blood vessels can have the different cross-sectional areas. Different cross-sectional areas. Depending upon that, there is a change in the velocity of the blood. So velocity of the blood is depending on the blood flow and cross-sectional area. If less cross-sectional, there is a more velocity. There is a more cross-sectional area, there is a less velocity. Means indirectly proportional. More cross-sectional area, less velocity. Less cross-sectional area, more velocity. You can see. Therefore, velocity is higher in the aorta because they have the less cross-sectional area. Velocity is more in the aorta because they have the more small cross-sectional area. Aorta can have the small cross-sectional area. Because of having the small cross-sectional area, there is a more velocity of blood in case of aorta. More velocity of the blood flow in case of aorta. Because aorta can have the small cross-sectional area. That means velocity always calculated Q by A. Q indicates blood flow. Blood flow. So blood flow is more in case of aorta. And they have the less cross-sectional area. The less cross-sectional area of aorta leads to the more velocity. More velocity. But it is lower in the all capillaries. That velocity is lower in all the capillaries. Why? Mean velocity of blood flow lowest on the capillaries. Velocity is very low in case of capillaries. This is required to maximize the exchange of substances. If blood flow is low in case of capillaries, there is a chance of exchange of the substances or exchange of the gases. Exchange of the substances with the fluid. Exchange of the substances with the fluid. So the velocity of the blood flow is low in case of the capillaries. That means capillaries can have the high sectional area. High cross-sectional area. Capillaries can have the high cross-sectional area. Because of the having the high cross-sectional area, there is a less velocity of the blood flow. Less velocity of the blood flow. Coming to very, very important cardiac output. Stroke volume means amount of blood ejected from each ventricle per beat. Amount of blood ejected from each ventricle per beat. Cardiac output means the volume of blood pumped by ventricle. One ventricle per minute. or simply ventricle. Volume of blood pumped by one ventricle per minute. The volume of blood pumped by one ventricle per minute. Cardiac output always with minute. Stroke volume with per beat. So cardiac output nothing but heart rate into stroke volume. Cardiac output nothing but heart rate into stroke volume. Stroke volume, amount of blood ejected from ventricles per beat. Okay, heart rate means heart always can have the 72 beats per minute. 72 beats per minute. Okay, so you can take normal cardiac output 5 liters per minute. 5 liters per minute. That means 72 beats per minute. 72. Stroke volume, you can take normal stroke volume is 70 ml per minute. 70 ml per beat. Sorry, in case of stroke volume there is a beat. You can see once again, per beat. The volume of blood ejected from the ventricles during each beat per minute. Volume of blood pumped by the ventricles per minute is the cardiac output. Coming to stroke volume, amount of volume ejected from the ventricles per beat. Stroke volume is the per beat. Cardiac output per minute. Stroke volume is the volume of blood ejected from each ventricle on each beat. Remember? So expressed by the following: stroke volume nothing but is end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. Stroke volume nothing but end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. So normally is about 70 ml. Already I told. Normally the stroke volume is 70 ml. So that means end diastolic volume is 150 ml. 140 ml. End systolic volume is 70 ml. So 140 minus 70. 140 ml minus 70 ml is equal to 70 ml. So normal it is 70 ml. Stroke volume normal is 70 ml. Coming to definitions of end systolic volume. Volume remaining after systole. End means systole. After completion of the systole, what is the volume is remained in the volume is remained. So volume remaining after systole. End diastolic volume. Volume to which the ventricles fill during diastole. Means relaxation. During relaxation, what is the volume is entering into the ventricles? Volume to which the ventricles filling during diastole. Volume remaining after systole. End systolic volume. Volume to which the ventricles are filling during diastole. Or simply volume of blood is available during diastole. Volume of blood is available during diastole. Coming to ejection fraction, EF, it is proportion of end diastolic volume ejected on each stroke. Nothing but stroke volume by end diastolic volume. Proportion of end diastolic volume ejected on each stroke. So that is ejection fraction nothing but stroke volume by end diastolic volume. Stroke volume by end diastolic volume. End diastolic volume means volume of blood available during diastole. End diastolic volume. Volume of blood available after contraction or after systole. Volume remaining after systole. Volume remaining after systole is called as end systolic volume. So the normal value of that ejection fraction is 64%. Coming to regulation of stroke volume by 3 factors. Regulation of stroke volume by 3 factors. Once again, stroke volume nothing but amount of blood ejected from ventricles per beat. Amount of blood ejected from ventricles per beat. So for each beat, how much amount of the blood is ejecting from the ventricles? For each beat, how much amount of the blood is ejecting from the ventricles is depending on 3 factors. That is preload, contractility, afterload. Preload, contractility, afterload. So regulation of stroke volume is by 3 factors. That is depending on preload, contractility, afterload. Preload. So nothing but stretch of cardiac muscle prior to contraction. means stretching of the cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is need to be prepared contraction. Cardiac muscle is required be prepared for contraction. So stretch of cardiac muscle prior to contraction, before undergoing the contraction. What is the stretching of the cardiac muscle? What is the stretching of the cardiac muscle? That means preload is proportional to end diastolic volume. Preload is proportional to the end diastolic volume. End diastolic volume, volume of blood present during diastole. Volume of blood present during diastole. This preload is directly proportional to the end diastolic volume. So definition of preload is stretch of cardiac muscle prior to contraction. Stretch of cardiac muscle prior to contraction. You can see stretching of the cardiac muscle in diagram. You can observe stretching of the cardiac muscle prior to contraction. See how it is stretching cardiac muscle. That means to accommodate the blood. That is stretching. Next, second factor is contractility. After stretching, there is a division of autonomic nervous system leads to positive inotropic, means force of contraction of the heart. Force of contraction of the heart is called as inotrope. Positive means increased force of contraction of the heart. Increased force of the contraction of the heart, positive. Decreased force of the contraction of the heart muscle is negative. Iono means ion. Which ions are required for contraction? Calcium ions. How calcium ions are released? Calcium ions are stored in case of sarcoplasmic reticulum. The releasing of the calcium ions is dependent on the efflux of inward movement of the calcium ions from extracellular fluid. Inward movement of the calcium ions from extracellular fluid through T tubules. The T tubules transmit the membrane potential. No, T tubules transmit the membrane potential. So these extracellular fluid calcium ions trigger the release of the sarcoplasmic reticulum calcium ions. Sarcoplasmic reticulum calcium ions. So that's why it is called iono means calcium ion. Ionotrope means force of contraction. Force of contraction of the heart. Positive means increased force of contraction of heart. Negative means decreased force of contraction of heart. Decreased force of contraction of heart. So that inhibition of sympathetic division of ANS leads to the negative inotrope. So sympathetic nervous system increases the force of contraction of the heart. Increases the force of contraction of the heart. Coming to afterload. After means after contraction. The pressure that must be overcome before a semilunar valve can open is termed the afterload. The pressure that must be overcome before semilunar valve can open. Generally semilunar valves are opened when blood is present in case of ventricles. When blood is present in case of ventricles. Once semilunar valves are opened, there is a flowing of the blood from right ventricle to lungs and flowing of the blood from left ventricle to aorta to systemic circulation. Aorta to systemic circulation. So the pressure that must be overcome before semilunar valve can open is termed the afterload. So it increase in afterload. Increase in afterload causes decrease in stroke volume. Remember, increase in afterload causes decrease in stroke volume. So hypertension, atherosclerosis increases the afterload. So hypertension and in case of atherosclerosis increases the afterload. So that means directly afterload, left ventricle means aortic pressure, right ventricle means pulmonary artery pressure. So the pressure developed before opening of the semilunar valves. There are two types of semilunar valves. One semilunar valve is present at the beginning of the pulmonary artery. One semilunar valve is present at the beginning of the aorta. So left ventricle is related to the aortic pressure. Right ventricle is related to the pulmonary artery pressure. Right ventricle is related to the pulmonary artery pressure. Right ventricle can have the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. That deoxygenated blood through pulmonary artery entered into the lungs. This pulmonary artery at the beginning can have the pulmonary semilunar valve. Pulmonary semilunar valve. Left ventricle pump the oxygenated blood. Left ventricle pump the oxygenated blood into the aorta. Through aorta, it enters into the systemic circulation. Through aorta, it enters into the systemic circulation. So right ventricle related to the pulmonary artery pressure. Right ventricle related to the pulmonary artery pressure. Left ventricle related to the aortic pressure. Coming to heart sounds. Coming to heart sounds. There are two distinct sounds can be heard on the anterior chest wall. There are two distinct sounds can be heard on the anterior chest wall. They are described as the lub dub sounds. The two sounds can be described as the lub dub sounds. The first lub sound is the result of the abrupt closure of atrioventricular walls as the ventricles contract. The lub sound is the result of the abrupt closure of the atrioventricular walls as the ventricles contracts. While ventricles contracting, there is abrupt closure of the atrioventricular walls. So between the right atrium and right ventricle, there is the wall. That wall is called as tricuspid wall. That wall is called as tricuspid wall. Between the left atrium and left ventricle, there is a bicuspid wall. Bicuspid wall, which is also called as mitral wall. So abrupt closure of the atrioventricular walls while ventricles are contracting. So this closure of the walls leads to this sound. That sound is called as lub. That indicates blood flowed into the ventricles, and ventricles are going into the contraction. So the closing of these two valves prevent the backflow of the blood from ventricles to atria. So the closure of the AV valves during ventricular systole prevents the backflow of the blood into atrial chambers. So the second sound, dub, is the closing of both semilunar valves during ventricular diastole. During the ventricular diastole, there is a closing of both the semilunar valves. That sound leads to the dub. That is during ventricular diastole. This is the heart sound. Lub sound, dub sound. Next, very important one. Blood pressure. Force of blood exerted against the vessel walls. There is force of blood exerted against the vessel walls. There are two types of pressure: systolic pressure, diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is high when the heart expels the blood. Systolic means contraction. Systolic pressure is always high when the heart expels the blood. Diastolic pressure occurs when the heart ventricles are relaxing. During relaxing of the heart ventricles, there is a pressure on the valves. That is called as diastolic pressure. Remember, systolic pressure is high when the heart expels the blood. Diastolic pressure occurs when the heart ventricles are relaxing. Okay, so always pressure is high in case of systole than the diastole. So it is the highest pressure. It is the highest in the arteries and the lowest in the veins. Always the pressure is highest in the arteries. Why? Because they are carrying the blood towards to the body parts. It is the highest in the arteries and the lowest in the veins. The blood pressure gradient means difference. The blood pressure gradient is the difference between two blood pressures. Blood pressure gradient means nothing but difference between two blood pressures. Is called as blood pressure gradient. So the BP for systemic circulation is the difference of the mean BP in the aorta and the pressure at the termination of the vena cava. So we need to do the BP for systemic circulation. So systemic circulation receives the blood from aorta. And heart receives the blood through superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So the BP for systemic circulation, nothing but difference of the mean BP in the aorta and the pressure at the termination of the vena cava. So the mean BP in the aorta normally 100 mm of Hg. The mean BP in the mean means average. The mean BP in the aorta is 100 mm of Hg, and within the termination of the vena cava, that is 0. So in case of means there is no pressure within the termination of the vena cava, it is 0. So the systemic BP gradient means difference in the blood pressure. Difference in the blood pressure, that is 100 minus 0, nothing but 100 mm of Hg. The BP gradient is responsible for keeping the blood in the flow motion. So the BP gradient is responsible for keeping the blood in flowing. When a BP gradient is not present, blood does not circulate. When a BP gradient is not present, blood does not circulate. Coming to factors affecting blood pressure. Factors affecting blood pressure. So blood volume can affect the blood pressure. The strength of contraction. Strength of contraction also can affect the blood pressure. Heart rate and thickness of blood. Heart rate and thickness of blood. So coming to blood volume. The larger the volume of blood in the arteries, the greater the pressure that is exerted on their walls. Very clear. The larger the volume of blood in the arteries, the greater the pressure is exerted on their walls. The pressure is exerted on their walls. The lower the volume, lower the blood pressure. The lower pressure. Emergency blood decrease volume of blood is the speed. Hemorrhage pronounce of decrease in volume that leads to decrease in BP. Diuretics. Diuretics are the drugs that promote water loss by increasing urine output. Yes, diuretics that promote water loss by increasing urine output. There is loss of the water. When there is a loss of water, decrease in volume. When there is a decrease in volume, decrease in BP. Like that purpose, we are using the diuretics as one of the antihypertensive agents. Coming to heart contractions, how can affect the BP? Strength and rate of the heartbeat. Strength and rate of the heartbeat affect cardiac output and therefore BP. So yes, the strength of the contraction and rate of the heartbeat. Rate of the heartbeat means how many beats per minute. How many beats per minute. So that contraction and rate of the heartbeat affect the cardiac output. That cardiac output affect the BP. Cardiac output affect the BP. So the stronger the contraction, more blood is pumped into the arteries. Yes, very clear. The stronger the contraction, the more blood is pumped into the arteries. The stronger the contraction, the more blood is pumped into the arteries. Coming to heart rate, it means beat per minute. So the heart also heart pressure. Rate of the heartbeat also may affect arterial blood pressure. When the heart beats faster, more blood enters the aorta. Yes, when the heart beats faster, more blood enters the aorta, and therefore heart blood pressure should increase if the stroke volume does not decrease. If stroke volume decrease, again there is a change. Stroke volume affect the cardiac out. Volume automatically will. So when the if it is faster, so more blood enters into the aorta, that blood enters into the arterial blood, so automatically arterial blood pressure will be increased. Arterial blood pressure will be increased. Okay, clear? Coming to blood viscosity. If the blood becomes less viscous, than normal, blood pressure will decrease. Means less viscous means it is freely flowing. There is no stopping. If a person suffers a hemorrhage, means loss of blood, or fluid moves into the blood from the interstitial fluid, this dilutes the blood and decreases the blood pressure. So that means when a person is suffering with hemorrhage, there is a loss of blood. Loss of blood means volume will be decreased, automatic BP will be decreased, or fluid moves into the blood fluid moves into the blood from the interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid that makes the dilution of the blood. That means the dilution of the blood. That means dilution of the blood is more means less viscosity. Dilution of the blood is more means less viscosity. This dilutes the blood and decreases the blood pressure and decreases the blood pressure. Coming to polycythemia. Polycythemia. It is Mia means related to the red blood cells. In which the number of red blood cells increase is the condition in which the number of red blood cells increase to compensate for low oxygen levels. Compensate for low oxygen levels. So it is a condition in which the number of red blood cells are increased to compensate the low oxygen levels. This can cause increase in viscosity. This leads to the increase in viscosity. If blood components, especially cells of the blood will be increased. Cells of the blood will be increased. That increases the viscosity of the blood. That increases the viscosity of the blood. If cells of the blood is increased, that increases the viscosity of the blood. This can cause an increase in viscosity. If viscosity is more, more blood pressure. If viscosity is more blood pressure. Coming to peripheral resistance, describes any force that acts against the flow of blood in a blood vessel. Describes any force that is acts against the flow of blood. Against the flow of blood in a blood vessel. That means tension of muscles within the walls of blood vessels can affect the peripheral resistance. That is the tension of muscles within the walls of blood vessels. The muscles which are present in the walls of the blood vessels, that is tension, can affect the peripheral resistance. So it describes the any force that acts against the flow of the blood in a blood vessel. When blood vessel walls are relaxed, resistance automatically low. When blood vessel walls are relaxed, resistance is low. When blood vessel muscles are contracted, resistance is high. When blood vessel muscles are contracted, resistance is high. You can take vasomotor mechanism, adjustment of muscle tension in vessel walls, adjustment of muscle tension in blood vessel walls to control blood pressure and blood flow. It's very clear once again. When blood vessels are relaxed, resistance is low. When blood vessel muscles are contracted, resistance is high. Already I told this afterload on. Sorry for that one. Already I explained. So that is the briefing of the cardiovascular system. That is blood vessels and the heart. So that is a very important system where you will get 1 or 2 questions from that unit. They asked already, I told, cardiac output. Cardiac output means amount of blood ejected from the ventricles per minute. So cardiac output is nothing but heart rate into stroke volume. Like that, important things are conduction system of the heart sounds, cardiac cycle, blood pressure. These four are the very important in related to the heart. Coming to next, another system, that is reproductive system. From reproductive system also they asked one question. In repeat question. So here first I would like to describe introduction. Reproductive system of both males and females consists of primary or essential organs and secondary, which are also called as accessory organs. So the reproductive system of both males Okay, thank you. So the reproductive system of both males and females consists of which are essential organs and secondary accessory organs. Primary organs refer to gonads very clearly. The primary organs refer to as gonads. The female gonads are the ovaries. The male gonads are the testes. Female gonads are the ovaries. The male gonads are the testes. It's the plural time. The primary function or responsibility of these gonads, both the testes and ovaries, is secretion of hormones and production of the gametes. Ova is the female gamete, sperm is the male gamete. So sperm is come from testes, whereas ova will come from ovaries. Ova will come from ovaries, sperm will come from testes. And also the testes and ovaries can secrete their respective hormones. So our accessory organs or secondary organs are responsible for transporting. The function is responsible for transporting and nourishing the ova and sperm, as well as preserving and protecting the fertilized eggs. So these secondary organs or accessory organs are responsible for transportation of that gametes, nothing but ova and sperm. Nourishing means supplement, that is supplying of the food. Nourishing the ova and sperm, as well as preserving and fertilized eggs. Coming to today, I started with the male reproductive system. So the primary role of the male reproductive system are production and transport of sperm. Next, deposition of sperm in the female reproductive tract and secretion of hormones. First function is production and transport of sperm. Second one is deposition of sperm in the female reproductive tract and secretion of hormones. So the reproductive system of males present its components in the abdomen, pelvis and perineum. So the organs of the male reproductive system located in the abdominal region, pelvis region and perineum. Coming to male reproductive organs are external genital organs. That external genital organs are penis. Second one is scrotum. External genital organs are, number one is penis, number two is scrotum. Coming to internal genital organs are testes, which are present inside. The external genital organs are which are present outside, which are visible. That is penis and scrotum. Internal genital organs are testes. Number two, duct system, that is epididymis, that is duct deferens, which is also called as vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra. So internal genital organs are testes. Number two is ducts. The ducts are epididymis, duct deferens, which is also called as vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra. Coming to accessory glands are secondary organs. Seminal vesicles, they are available in pair. Prostate gland, that is single. Bulbourethral glands, that are pair, which are also called as Cowper glands. Bulbourethral glands in case of pair. So seminal vesicles, prostate gland and bulbourethral glands. These are the internal genital organs. Testis, epididymis, duct deferens or vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra. Accessory glands are seminal vesicles, prostate gland, bulbourethral glands. Coming to first external male reproductive organ is penis. It is the cylindrical pendant organ. Located anterior to the scrotum. And functions to transfer sperm to the vagina. Transfer of the sperm to the vagina by penis. Coming to consists of three columns of erectile tissue. That are wrapped in connective tissue. And covered with skin. So the two dorsal columns are the corpora cavernosa. The two dorsal columns are the corpora cavernosa. The second one is single midline ventral column surrounds the urethra and is called corpus spongiosum. Corpus spongiosum. So this penis can have the three columns of erectile tissue that are wrapped in connective tissue and covered with skin. The two dorsal columns are the corpus cavernosa. The second one is single midline ventral column surrounds the urethra and is called as corpus spongiosum. This is a sponge. That is called corpus spongiosum. The penis can have the three parts: root, body, and glans penis. Body is also called as shaft. So the root of the penis attaches it to the pubic arch. The root of the penis attaches it to the pubic arch. So here the important thing is, you have to remember, the erectile tissue can have the three columns. The two dorsal columns are the corpus cavernosa. One column are the corpus spongiosum. Corpus spongiosum. The body is the visible. Yes, I already told you. It is the external organ. The body is the visible and pendant portion. The corpus spongiosum expands at the distal end. Expands at the distal end to form the glans penis. It forms the glans penis. That is, you can take urethra, which extends throughout the length of the corpus spongiosum, opens through the external urethral orifice at the tip of the glans penis. So the urethra is supplied throughout the length of the corpus spongiosum and it opens through the external urethral orifice. And it is opens through the external urethral orifice at the tip of the glans penis. Nothing but a loose fold of skin called the prepuce or foreskin or covers the glans penis. You can see the structure of the penis. You can observe the urinary bladder. You can observe the prostate urethra and bulbourethral glands and membranous urethra. You can observe the scrotum. Okay, you can observe the corpus cavernosa. There are two bundles, and you can observe the single bundle. There are two columns of the corpus cavernosa. You can observe the corpus spongiosum, which is the single one, and you can observe the spongy urethra. You can observe the glans penis. You can observe the external urethral orifice. External urethral orifice, which is through this orifice there is ejection of the sperm, and through this orifice there is a output of the urine also. Output of the urine also. That's why there is a link with the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder is the temporary storage site for urine. Temporary storage site for urine. So through that penis there is a ejection of the sperm and also ejection of the urine or output of the urine. That is called through external urethral orifice. This is the scrotum. Scrotum can have the two testes or pair of testes. Coming to erection, involves increase in length, width and firmness of the penis, change in blood supply. So more blood supply is required. To require more blood supply, there is a requirement of arterioles dilate and requirement of constriction of veins. The spongy erectile tissue fills with blood. The spongy erectile tissue fills with blood. With the help of blood, there is a erection. Blood is required more. The more blood is required due to which is required for erection. So that is possible with arterioles dilation. So that erectile dysfunction, also known as impotence. Erectile dysfunction, also known as impotence. Coming to scrotum, it consists of skin and subcutaneous tissue. Consists of skin and subcutaneous tissue. So a vertical septum of subcutaneous tissue in the center divides into two parts. Very important. A vertical septum of subcutaneous tissue in the center divides into two parts, each containing one testis. Each containing one testis. So scrotum can have vertical septum. That vertical septum divides into two parts. Each part can consist of one testis. Each part can consist of one testis. So smooth muscle fibers called the dartos muscle. Smooth muscle fibers of the scrotum called as dartos muscle in the subcutaneous tissue contract, smooth muscle by contract to give the scrotum its wrinkled appearance. The scrotum looks like wrinkled appearance because of the contraction of the smooth muscle fibers. When these fibers are relaxed, the scrotum is smooth. When these fibers are relaxed, the scrotum is smooth. When the smooth muscle fibers are contracted, the scrotum looks like wrinkled appearance. When these fibers are relaxed, the scrotum looks like smooth. Next, second muscle is the cremaster muscle. The cremaster muscle. Cremaster muscle consists of skeletal muscle fibers. Cremaster muscle consists of skeletal muscle fibers and controls the position of the scrotum and testis. These skeletal muscle fibers control the position of the scrotum and testis. When it is cold or a man is sexually aroused, this muscle contracts to pull the testis closer to the body for warmth. Body for warmth. Okay, are getting? So the cremaster muscle is the skeletal muscle. This controls the position of the scrotum and testis. When it is cold or man is sexually aroused, this muscle contracts to pull the testis closer to the body for warmth. You can see the scrotal structures. The scrotal structures are, you can observe spermatic cord, you can observe the epididymis, you can observe the testis, you can observe the scrotum. So scrotum, inside the scrotum there is a testis. The testis can have outside epididymis. Epididymis is linked with spermatic cord. Spermatic cord. Okay. So scrotum can have the testes. There are two testes. So each testis is an oval structure. Each testis is an oval structure about 5 cm long and 3 cm in diameter. Each testis is an oval structure about 5 cm long and 3 cm in diameter. So this testis covered by tunica albuginea. Testis covered by tunica albuginea, located in the scrotum. There are about 250 lobules in each testis. Each testis can have the 250 lobules. Each contains 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules. Each lobule contains 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules that converge to form a single straight tubule which leads into the rete testis. So the short afferent ducts exit the testis. Very important. So the testis can have the 250 lobules. Each lobule can have the 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules that converge to form a single straight tubule. Which leads into the rete testis. Very, very important. Question came from this section in previous GPAT. That question is, which cells of the male reproductive system can secrete the testosterone? You know, testosterone is the male sex hormone. So the interstitial cells, which are also called as Leydig cells, produce male sex hormone. Are located between the seminiferous tubules within a lobule. So these interstitial cells are cells of Leydig located between the seminiferous tubules within the lobule. So each testis can have the 250 lobules. Each lobule can have the 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules. Between seminiferous tubules there is a interstitial cells. Between two cells the space is called as interstitium. Between two cells the space is called as interstitium. The cells that is called as interstitial cells. That interstitial cells also called as cells of Leydig. Very important. They produce male sex hormone. That is testosterone. You can see, you can observe the testis structure. There is the scrotum. Scrotum can have the vas deferens, and there is a, you can observe the seminiferous tubules. seminiferous tubules. Between the seminiferous tubules there is a Leydig cells that can secrete the testosterone. It can secrete the testosterone. So sperm cells pass through a series of ducts. So sperm cells pass through a series of ducts to reach the outside of the body. To reach the outside of the body, spermatocyte or sperm cells pass through a series of ducts to reach the outside of the body. Okay, so after they leave the testes, so testes are the sites for production of the sperm cells. So after they leave the testes, the sperm passes through the epididymis, followed by ductus deferens, ejaculated duct, and urethra. Means ejection of the sperm from testes. Ejection of the sperm from testes. That is through epididymis, ductus deferens, ejaculatory duct, and urethra. Finally, through external urethral orifice, and it will be ejected. First one. In case of after testis, we need to discuss about epididymis. It is the long tube, has 6 meters, located along the superior and posterior margins of the testis. Located along the superior and posterior margins of the testis. Sperm that leave the testis, yes, what is the sperm that leave the testis? Is immature and it have the incapable of fertilizing ova, and it have the incapable of fertilizing ova. You can remember the function of the testis is secretion of the male sex hormone, that is testosterone, and also secretion of the sperm. That is the function of the testis. Epididymis function is, what is the sperm came from testis? The sperm will be the immature and it has the incapable of fertilizing ova, and has incapable of fertilizing ova. They complete their maturation process and become fertile as they move through the epididymis. Means they move through the epididymis. Mature sperm are stored in the lower portion of the epididymis. So mature sperm are stored in the lower portion or tail of the epididymis. Right? So at which site of the male reproductive organs, or at which organ of male reproductive is involved in maturation of the spermatocytes or maturation of the sperm? Nothing but epididymis. Nothing but epididymis. Epididymis is involved in maturation of the spermatocyte and also involved in storage of the mature sperm. Storage of the mature sperm. Mature sperm are stored in the lower portion or tail of the epididymis. Lower portion or tail of the epididymis. Next, ductus deferens. Ductus deferens, which is also called as vas deferens. After epididymis, it is the fibromuscular tube that is continuous with the epididymis. It is the fibromuscular tube that is continuous with the epididymis. Hello. So ductus deferens, which is also called as vas deferens, it is a fibromuscular tube that is continuous with the epididymis. That is continuous with the epididymis. It enters the abdominopelvic cavity. It enters the abdominopelvic cavity through the inguinal canal and passes along the lateral pelvic wall behind the bladder and toward the prostate gland. Just before it reaches the prostate gland, each ductus deferens enlarges to form an ampulla. Remember very clearly, it is a fibromuscular tube that is continuous with the epididymis. It is continuous with the epididymis. It enters into the abdominopelvic. Already I told, the male reproductive organs are located in case of abdomen and also pelvic region. Abdominopelvic cavity through the inguinal canal and passes along the lateral pelvic wall behind bladder and toward the prostate gland. So prostate gland is the accessory male reproductive organ. Just before it reaches the prostate gland, each ductus deferens is to form an ampulla. Sperm are stored in the proximal portion of the ductus deferens near the epididymis. So here sperm also stored in the proximal portion of the ductus deferens, that is near the epididymis or lower portion of the epididymis. Coming to ejaculatory duct. Each ductus deferens at the ampulla joins the duct from the adjacent seminal vesicles. Each ductus deferens at the place of the ampulla joins the duct from the adjacent seminal vesicles, one of the accessory glands. The seminal vesicles also one of the accessory glands to form a short ejaculatory duct. So vas deferens at the position of the ampulla joins with the adjacent seminal vesicles. And forms the short ejaculatory duct. So each ejaculatory duct passes through the prostate gland and empties into the urethra. Each ejaculatory duct passes through the prostate gland and empties into the urethra. Once again, each duct deferens at the ampulla joins the duct from the adjacent seminal vesicle, one of the accessory glands, to form a short ejaculatory duct. Each ejaculatory duct passes through the prostate gland. And empties into the urethra. Coming to next, urethra extends from the urinary bladder. It extends from the urinary bladder, to the external urethral orifice at the tip of the penis. So starting from the urinary bladder, ended with external urethral orifice at the tip of the penis. It is a passageway for sperm. Urethra is the passageway for sperm and fluids from the reproductive system and urine from the urinary system. So both urine and sperm pass through the urethra. In and pass through the urethra. It divided into three regions: the prostatic urethra, the membranous urethra, the penile urethra, also called spongy urethra or cavernous urethra. The penile urethra is also called as spongy urethra or cavernous urethra. Right? So this urethra is the passageway for both sperm, which is from male reproductive system, and also from urinary system, that is urine. So today I would like to wind up the male reproductive system with the discussion of primary organs or major organs. That will be continued in next class. I would like to extend that presentation with accessory organs of the male reproductive organs tomorrow. So I can explain the accessory organs of the male reproductive system tomorrow. So today we complete the primary organs of the male reproductive system. Nothing but that is penis, scrotum, which are the external genitalia, and that scrotum can have the testis, Scrotum can have the testis, and ductus system, that is epididymis. Duct difference or vas difference. Duct difference or vas difference, and also that is ejaculatory duct and urethra. Majorly urethra, ejaculatory duct, urethra, uh, ejaculatory duct, urethra. That is semi. That is vas difference or duct difference. Vas difference or duct difference, and testis. Clear? Testis, duct difference or vas difference, duct difference or vas difference, ejaculatory duct, urethra. That is, and also epididymis. Coming to the previous questions came from anatomy and physiology in GPAT. Till now, I had discussion about in first day, that is cell junctions, transport mechanisms, and second day I had discussion about digestive system followed by cardiovascular system, continuation of the cardiovascular system, and starting of the male reproductive system will be continued today. So from these sections and related to these topics, what are the questions came in previous GPAT papers and also other competitive exams. First question is, which of the following is most likely undergo lysis? Which of the following is most likely undergo lysis? So first option is a cell losing water from its cytoplasm. Second one is a cell with an intact multi-layer peptidoglycan cell wall, a cell with disrupted pentaglycine bridges in its cell wall, a cell with hydrophilic outermost layer in its cell wall. Remember, the cell of human have the cell membrane. Cell membrane can have the phospholipid bilayer. The phospholipid bilayer embedded with carbohydrates and proteins. Okay, coming to peptidoglycan layer will be present in case of bacteria, and pentaglycine residue bridges also present in case of bacterial cell wall. So cell with hydrophilic outermost layer in its cell wall. So it is normally not present to my knowledge. Coming to first option, a cell losing water from its cytoplasm. So movement of the water from its cytoplasm to outside. Movement of water from cytoplasm of the cell to outside. When contents of the cell, especially water, will be moved from its cytoplasm to outside, I told in case of transport mechanisms, that is hypertonic solution, hypotonic solution, isotonic solution. When you place the cell in hypertonic solution, nothing but it has the more concentration of solutes and less water. More concentration of the solutes and less water. That's it is called as hypertonic. So when our cell is placed in the hypertonic solution can have the less amount of water and more solutes. That means our cell have the more amount of water in with respect to hypertonic solution. Our cell have the more amount of the water with respect to hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution can have the less amount of water and more solutes. Less amount of water, more solutes. So in case of osmosis, I told water moved from its higher concentration to lower concentration. That means higher content of water to lower content of water. Water moves from its higher content to lower content. Not related to the solutes. Water always move from its higher content. So water is more in cell when compared to hypertonic solution. Water is more in cell when compared to hypertonic solution. So water is moved from cell to hypertonic solution. Water is moved from cell to hypertonic solution. So when water is moved from cell to hypertonic solution, cell undergoes the lysis. So this is related to that one, right? Next, coming to second question. That is, can you? I need to explain remaining one related to the first question. Yes, we can take in case of hypotonic solution. When our cell is placed in case of hypotonic solution, when our cell is placed in case of hypotonic solution can have the more amount of the water when compared to cell. So water is moved from hypotonic solution to water. Cell undergoes the bulging or burst. Cell will be burst. And second question, in which part of the GIT mastication takes place? In which part of the GIT mastication takes? Very easy question. Stomach, oral cavity, rectum, duodenum. So mastication nothing chewing. Mastication nothing but chewing. Chewing takes place by the help of the teeth. Teeth are located in case of oral cavity. So which place of the or which part of the GIT there is a occurring of mastication? Oral cavity. Next, I didn't explain this one. Largest hip bone is, that is, calcaneus, femur, ischium, ilium. So femur is the largest hip bone. So these are the questions. And one of the student, G. Anusha, wrote that, sir, you explained the tight junctions are present in the epithelial cells of the intestines, but how the nutrients majorly absorbed through the intestine, you can explain. Yes, I told tight junctions are present in the intestinal epithelial cells. Apart from tight junctions, normally the tight junctions present at apical region of the cell, whereas the desmosomes present or connect base of the cell to lamina. So at basal region there is a desmosomes, at apical region there is a tight junctions. So the tight junctions present at apical region or at the apical sites of the small intestine. The presence of tight junctions in the epithelial cells of the intestine to prevent the flow of the or to prevent the transport of the harmful substances or pathogens into the blood, whereas the nutrients or small molecules or water is absorbed because of the presence of the microvilli in the small intestine that majorly have the desmosomes and gap junctions also present in small intestinal cells. That gap junctions and desmosomes allow the passage of these nutrients and water to be absorbed. That related to this question, I can mail to the Anusha. And the questions which I observed in previous competitive exams like drug inspector and pharmacist related to the blood, which cells are called as scavenger cells? Neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, RBC. Neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, RBC. So macrophages are called as scavenger cells. Macrophages are called as the scavenger cells. Next, one more question is related to the blood vessels. You may get that one in case of the pathology. What do you mean by aneurysm? Aneurysm. Aneurysm nothing but permanent dilatation of the blood vessels. Permanent dilatation of the blood vessels is called as aneurysm. Permanent dilatation of the blood vessels is called as aneurysm. Okay. And one more question. What is that protein is involved in adhesion of the two cells in a tissue. Adhesion of the two cells in a tissue. So that is adhesive protein is glycoprotein. I told in case of the junctions, cell junctions, glycoprotein acting as a adhesive protein which is involved in adhesion of the two cells membranes in a particular tissue. Okay, so that is related to the cell junctions. And you can take in case of cardiovascular system, I told the question came in case of cardiac output. And in case of male reproductive system, which cells of the male reproductive system secrete the testosterone? That is, Leydig cells or interstitial cells secrete the testosterone. Okay, so for tomorrow also I can continue with the male reproductive system with accessory organs followed by female reproductive system, and at the end I can answer to your questions and I can explain other previous questions which came in case of GPAT and other competitive exams related to B.Pharm students. So by this I would like to complete the session. Once again, thank you for all of you for your patience hearing, and very thankful to the organizers. Without interruption, without any disturbances, they are conducting the online GPAT classes for you. So you can utilize this service offering by the government of Andhra Pradesh and JNTU Anantapur, JNTU Kakinada and IP Anantapuram local branch, and the experts were explaining from various parts, that means Riper GPAT cell and other experts. So thank you once again, and my best wishes for your future, for your bright future. Thank you one and all. Hello.